Richard, you are working where many, many people do their vacations. How did it come to that?
Uh, Pure luck, a little bit of charm and good looks, and being at the right place at the right time. I was given an opportunity back in 2000 to come to Costa Rica and teach English at my friend's call center. And I was in between jobs at the time, and 27 is a perfect age to be born again. And so I decided to take my chance, and I fell in love with the country, fell in love with a local and married, and learned the business from the inside out. And then I just rolled the dice, and I guess the lucky streak hasn't ended yet.
It's so interesting that just say that 27 is a good time to be reborn. When I go through life, I'm 21 right now. I always feel like I don't have enough time to do everything I have in my head, if you understand what I mean. Many people are just having their one career path they're always pursuing. And around the age 40 to 45, most of them are just looking around and saying, yeah, now it's too late to get out. So, what do you mean by 27 is the perfect age to be reborn? How did you come to that conclusion?
Not so young, and you're not too old. It's the perfect temperature. And I hate to be morbid or bring the show down, but there are some incredible individuals that left the world at 27. You got your Janice and your Jimmy and your Jim, Mr. Morrison, and even Kurt Cobain. And so if you want to just do with the people that we know from pop culture, they're at the peak, but then again, they continue to shine. And so for me personally, my friend, because you seem a lot more mature and established than I was at 27, I was still a lost soul. Um, I knew that, as you say, time was ticking and there's so many opportunities. And if you're planning on settling down and making roots, you need time for that tree to grow. So, as you and I both said, we need to figure out where the soil is the best and the sun is the shiniest and where you could be the happiest. Because you know what happens, my man, and you were talking about people earlier that are focused on their career and they're 45 and they've done their thing, but it's too late to get out. It's because they were programmed into that. They were under a lot of pressure by their family or socially. You should go to this certain university and study this thing and marry that individual and have that sort of life. Maybe what television or your culture or your even community expects. And so if there's guys like me and you that think outside the box and have that hero's journey, everyone always gives the fable of the one that sails away and comes back with adventures. It's someone has to leave the pueblo and the town. And if you don't explore, you don't find. And I
Mm.
guess maybe growing up, we've heard all of those fables and stories. Well, guess what? Right, I wanted my story. Didn't have to be what someone else did or comparing with cash or distance, but I just wanted to feel fulfilled. So the biggest thing before people pass on to the next life is having regret. And if I could minimize that by doing certain things and not succumbing to pressures, then maybe I could release that weight and live a much healthier and happier life.
You just said that a lot of people are trying to be fulfilled, find their thing that they want to do. But it is so hard to not compare yourself to others in times of social media and everything. Everybody has any kind of social media platform on their smartphone, is constantly comparing themselves in cash wise, life wise, how good the person has it in comparison to yourself. And you always, so for my part, it is the whole podcast, the whole idea of this podcast is to give people help trying to find the thing they want to do in their life or with their life, or they want to go in this direction. That's the main reason behind Life Decoded. When you compare yourself to those others or going around, you always start to copy a bit of them if you like what they have. So how can you not get into the trap of copying other people instead of having your own opinions when you consume that much as we do right now?
You and I go out and hang out and have lunch. I'm not going to force you to drink orange soda. I mean, you can't force a hand on somebody. I mean, maybe Rolex isn't my brand. Maybe I don't want to drive a Maserati. And maybe going to skiing or the beach or the jungle, maybe that might not be my type of vacation. But if
Mhm.
it's me today, you tomorrow, and it makes you happy, I think it's fantastic. The things that I want to compare with, if you really want to get down to it, my man, if somebody hits the gym every day and their temple and their body is complete, doesn't matter their soma type, if they're tall, short, fat, but if you're seeing that sort of personal respect, structure, and discipline, anybody that works out hard and meets someone else that does it, you don't even need to know the person. You're like, yo, man, I see you work out. Good for you. And it goes right back and forth. Or if you meet a musician or an artist, they might have never met before, but they know the time they put in to get there. And so I judge people on the things that are self-built. I understand about money and building business, so whatever. I like people that are very much in shape, that have really good routines. You can have fun with your food, but I also like fantastic diets. And the individuals that pay it forward. You could be a millionaire or a bum, but you could still open a door for somebody and know your please and thank yous. And so I look for the basics. You don't need to treat people a certain way. If you treat everybody with dignity and you're just a nice person, you're the greatest guy in town. And in regards to your social media, the richest of them all don't show anything. It's the other ones that do. And why do you think The Wizard of Oz was so important for people? What happens when you pull that curtain back? You know your best friend's true stories. You know your family's stories. And so most of the people are afraid to show what's in the kitchen. But if you're brave enough to do that, and you let people into your world, and you show them certain things about you which make seem weak or vulnerable, actually it's like the statue of David. You're just pure man in his natural state. You're the strongest out there. And so be selective. But if you are able to share things about you to show you what you see as reality and how you work with it, deal with it, and move forward with it, you are a business owner, you are an entrepreneur, or you're an adventurer, you're a good friend. And so the older that I get, I mean, how many dinners can I eat? And it's great. You have all this money, but I'd rather be on your podcast hanging out with my buddy than counting my money in some other room. And so you start realizing the real value of life. And it is that sort of relationships that you have with people.
What you just said is something I never heard before. Of course, we know that everybody on social media is just showing the best life, the best moments of their life. So it's always a fair comparison to them. But what you just said was that all the rich people are actually not showing the stuff. So the richest of the richest. We're not talking about the ones that making good money. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, all of them. They're not showing the lifestyle. They're talking about AI. They're talking about the technology. They're talking about what they're really working in that moment. If it's really the real thing that they're working about, or are they just trying to get a new agenda into the mainstream? I don't know. But they're not showing off all the time. And that's something I never realized before. That's something I never watched out for, and now that you said it, it makes a lot of sense, and it dismantles the whole thing of those best moments and the fake moments. It makes them a lot more unbelievable now, if that makes sense.
I love the show Undercover Boss because if you and I walk in the room, people are going to treat us differently. But if we're undercover and we're in the kitchen making pies with Billy, you get to hear the good and the bad and the happy and the sad, and you get to see when the cameras are off. Does this guy really step up to the plate? Does he have fidelity? You really get to see him. And then at the end of the show, they always promote that one person, and of course they promote that one person. That person is true. They're consistent. They're not faking it. So I feel bad for some people that have friends because of social climbing. And trust me, I understand it, where they dress and act a certain way. And that's fine. That's their decision. But deep down inside, they'd rather have chocolate than strawberry in their ice cream. And they really don't want to go eat at that restaurant if they had a choice. They just follow along just to have company or to be accepted. There's nothing wrong with being in the wild card. Every group of people has that one individual that's eccentric. It shakes things up a bit. Or as they say in the old King's Court, you have the Joker, the individual that has the has the power to speak the truth and not get in trouble for it in front of the king. And so if you're that friend that can call the balls and the strikes, not to tease you on your worst day, but to make sure that your game is where it needs to be, that's a true friend. And that's the sort of opinion that you'll trust because they'll, as I mentioned, call the good times and also pull you aside and let you know they'll straighten your tie before the big meeting, champ. And then you know they really got your back.
How do you find them?
They
So not
find you.
everybody can do an undercover boss or an undercover friend episode. So you also don't want to test your buddies or your friends because that's awkward, and most of the time that underlines that you don't trust them at all if you need to test them. So how can I be certain that those friends that are around me right now are true to me and will say the same thing in 5 years if every single person is evolving every single day?
I can look at it two different ways, and that's a very good question, but it's a dangerous question because the worst thing that could ever happen in your life is to lose a very good friend. And it happens. Sometimes you grow apart or you disagree or your pride gets in the way where somebody just can't apologize and say they're sorry. I think you and I are nice people, but sometimes people come in and out of your life for many different reasons. And so I think you should have the natural filter. I believe in cosquillas and mariposas and chills and tingles. There's a sort of electromagnetic energy that people can send to you and you can sense it. And so if your body is, and you got to give someone a break because if they're having a tough day, it's not you. I mean, you got to give them enough examples to know the person well. But I think internally, if you feel comfortable with them in silence, or you can sit next to somebody for a half an hour on a dock fishing, you got a good friend. You're just hanging out. But if you always need to be entertaining or one upping and spending money or distracted, that's really just someone just for the company. But the second thing that I like to do, you need to have the consistency. And so I might ask a certain question just to see a certain range of thought, or even if they're taking something into consideration. Even if you don't have an experience in something, you can still be a good listener. Or you could just call to catch up and say, "Hey, Maurice, how you doing, man? I remember last Sunday you said something happened there. Just following up. You're not asking for anything, really. You're just calling to see how you're doing. You're not buying me a beer. I'm not asking to borrow a shovel, or something from your house. Um, it's interesting when I talk to my parents, I go, "Do you speak to your friends?" They go, "Well, it's interesting. I'm usually the one that calls. I get a few people that call, but I'm usually the one that reaches out." I don't blame people that get stuck in their lives and one day turns to 1 year. It moves so fast. And maybe unless you look at a photograph or something reminds you of something, me, it's Costa Rica. Yeah, it's called Rich. They don't remember, but I remember. Why? Because it's not for me, it's for them. I want them to know that someone still thinks about them 40 years later and somebody is wishing you well and is proud of you and the life that you did and the fact that we still have this relationship after all this time. It's very nice. You don't need to talk for 2 hours. Sometimes it's just 2 minutes and it's more than enough to give that high five and hug. And and they'll thank you. Most of the time they go, Richie, I really needed that today. He just brought me into a good head and a good space. Of course. Just thinking of good times. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the magic dust that you can use from time to time to brighten up your day.
Amen. Wow. Okay, so a lot of what you just said resonated with me deeply because there's always this talk about good friendships and what makes good friends, and I'm always trying to be a good friend. I the main thing is laying on the trying is the main part of the sentence. So it's not everybody is cut out or made for always thinking about others because everybody has their own life going through their own things. How do you cope with people who have a lot more going on in their life but don't mean it's necessarily bad when they don't text you every week or don't write you something? How can you cope with that? Is everybody of them just a bad friend, or how can I imagine that?
I'm going to judge them on the 99 times they came through. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Call me in a month. I mean, if that is cool for you, and then we can always just pick up where you left off. Nothing's really a deal breaker unless you scratch my car. Might be a deal breaker. but, but everything else is cool, man. As you say, life gets in the way. And let me share something else with you. It's very important that you're good with you because as a tree, you need the trunk for the branches. I mean, how are you going to reach out to anybody else if you're not good? And your buddy that didn't call you back, he's having a very, very bad day. Maybe he's not in the mood to talk to anybody. Maybe he doesn't want you to see this individual in this state of mind. Or maybe they just need a personal timeout, my brother. I know you're thinking about them, feeling what's going on, but maybe they just need to take that walkabout, that decompression time, just to cool off, ease up, private
Mm,
time. And that's where I'm getting back to my point where, unless that's why I love the gym, because that's my private time every day and I can recharge and find my center. But individuals need to be able to have that internal balance and that internal peace so then they can extend to others, like passing that flame of the candle. Yeah, if there's not enough to go around, you got to eat it all yourself. But once you have excess, then you can spread the wealth, the Richard wealth and the Maurice wealth. And that's the way I look at it. And so um, maybe you might need to spend some time alone, and it's not by fault of your own. Maybe it's just the stars aren't aligned with other people's times. And so, as I say, my man, meditation is important and self preservation, where you feel just happy and good every day. That's fine. And I think at your age, I think you're at a beautiful age. 21 is such a fun age. And when I was 21, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet. And, at the parties, unless you brought a camera, no one's really taking pictures. Very difficult to capture those moments unless it's very specific. And so what would happen? There was just tons and tons of small groups talking, lying on the grass outside and joking around and goofing around and throwing a football, climbing a tree, doing whatever, but being alive. And today, your generation spends time with their friends, but they might be online playing games together. And I understand the interaction, but that's the only way they can get in with these groups and to be part of that. Um, so I think there's not that much stimulation when you're unless you're with the people, and so unfortunately, my man, your cognitive senses to read this stuff could be diminished because of that sort of medium of the phone, the texting instead of hey, if I had to call you back in the day, I had to call your house and speak to Mrs. Brody, your mother, and ask if you were home and ask permission to talk to you. You got guts to do that. And let's say you weren't doing your homework. Now I got you in trouble, and so um, these are the sort of character building things that you had to do to go and knock on the door and introduce myself to your parents and sit there politely while you were getting ready. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to answer your question, my man, I think it's just because of what you see online. And that's the kid in the playground that can kick the ball the furthest and jump the highest and run the fastest. Today, now it's the social media strength and speed and height on what you can do. And it's just, it's overwhelming and it's
it is.
nonstop. And you might feel like you're missing out.
Mm.
And, but then you say, Richard, why are you on the podcast today with Moritz? Well, I'm not selling anything. Okay. And I don't have a book, and most people hate telemarketers. So you have me here just I guess out of grace. But your audience can see just two buddies just hanging out and talking ideas and seeing where we go. And if I can assist somebody and guide them into a better mindset, maybe lend a hand some way. Well, man, I had a great day. That's the way I look at it now. And it could be with a perfect stranger that I never even met that listens to your show. And so um those are the sort of things that pick me up. And that's what gravitates people towards me to even make more friends. That's what I'm saying, my man. People are attracted to the light and to strength. And as long as you keep focusing on yourself mentally and physically, you'll make plenty of friends.
Wow. Okay, so just to get it a bit summarized, there is yourself, and no matter who you are, as long as you try to be your best, you will shine some lights, bring all of the friends to you, get new opportunities to meet people as well, because you're putting yourself out there. It's at the end of the day, it's just getting out of the comfort zone, and you really, really did that when going to Costa Rica and opening your own business over there. So, first of all, congratulations about that. It's a few years back, I think. Could you tell me what happened there? How was the time? Just the story behind you opening a business in another country that you've never seen before.
Right. Well, guess what, my friend? When you go to the United States, listen to your English. You're more than capable. And so when I came here, I was bilingual. So I had an advantage over some gringos that couldn't speak the language and just knew the word Zen. And so I knew that at least as a first impression, it would be strong. So that's a natural filter as well. But when I came here, I worked at my friend's center and I decided to stay. And so 2 months turned into 4 years. And I didn't learn it sea level. I learned it from the inside out. And in the call center industry, there's many departments. You have onboarding and retention, customer support, lead generation, sales, affiliate management, SEO, even some of the labor laws. And so I felt it was like my graduate school. It was 4 years of learning something. I just wasn't stagnant or doing the same thing. I found it fascinating. And so when the time came in my mid 30s, I was mature enough. I had the impulse control. Those are two things that I'm not saying you don't have, but you can keep working on. You're 21, maturity and impulse control. And I realized that I was responsible enough to start this thing. And so put up the website in October of 2007, February of 2008, landed the first account. But I was renting a turnkey station at a blended call center. It's like an internet cafe. So I could scale accordingly without the pressure of the overhead. And I did that for about 2 years till I had the capital and the stable clients. And then I went and rented space. And the beauty of my industry is there is turnover of call centers. So I was purchasing computers for 20% of what they paid for it for the import tax and brand new. And so I could scale seat by seat and row by row accordingly. And I did that for 6 years. And then I had enough capital to purchase a property, a beautiful location near the universities. And I fixed it out. I made it like an old Art Deco 1920s theater looking on the outside. It's got marquees and neon lights and stuff. Yeah, I love that. And so I made a beautiful castle. And this is kind of where we are today. So, as much as I'd love to give you the overnight success, or I did it at 21 or something that took me 6 months, I think what are we on our 18th year in business? And so, like aged wine, sometimes things do take time. And so, mine unfortunately took too long to get to where I'm at. But still happy that it happened. You know, it wasn't a king, but at least a prince. And it's been a fun run. But I know what you're thinking. What would have happened if you did stay in the States and work for your family business or follow what everyone did in Philly? It would have been different. Would I have made more money? I don't know, but it would have been different. And I know perfectly well that I would have always been that kid that looks at the horizon or the ocean and wonders, what if? I mean, give me that boat and let me go. So I'd be the doggy with the wagging tail that's just dying to get out of the yard and just run and explore. And so I would have probably never even been on this podcast today. I just wouldn't have had the desire to share that story, Living in Philly, man, above a drugstore in Pottstown, selling cars. What kind of story is that?
This what if mindset is, I think, something everybody who wants more out of life, not even more in a better way, just wants to look over the plate and everything. I think that this is one of the most important abilities that you should have to really ask yourself in a lot of situations. What if I do it in that way and in that way? And oftentimes I find myself in a situation like, for instance, I was doing a YouTube video and you're asking a lot of what ifs in the beginning. What if I made a YouTube video about this topic? What if I was talking about this topic? What about doing a complete other thing that's completely out of my niche? Then you get started, and the what ifs, they are decreasing by time. And as soon as you are completely in it, heads down, at least it's for me like this, there is that point where I don't have any what ifs anymore. I just have my plan. I need to follow it through now. And sometimes it would have been better in the editing process, for instance, to ask myself, what if I used another effect? Or what if I tried to do it that way? Because I ran into an error multiple times while rendering the video, and I couldn't find a solution for actually a whole hour just because I didn't ask myself, what if I just render this little sequence that's doing all the problems by itself, figure that out, and put it into the video. And it's way too technical what I'm explaining right now, but I hope it gets over that the what ifs mindset is something that really, really needs to be trained, at least in my everyday age. Was it something you're just born with, or how can I imagine that?
It's like the parallel universe theory. I just didn't want to be in that universe anymore. I'd take anything else. At least let me try. And so, as a young boy, we would travel. I had very generous and fortunate parents, and so when we would go to Mexico, I would come back with additional vocabulary. And this is when I was like 7, 8 years old. And so when I would meet somebody from the Latino community, I would use that vocabulary and limited grammar. And I was getting such reinforcement that I realized it was special. And in high school, it was my favorite class. And instead of going to law school or medical school or being an engineer, I don't think I had the maturity to do it. Plus, I didn't have the grades. But I made the argument to my parents that my great grandparents came to the United States at the turn of the 20th century from Eastern Europe, and they spoke Russian and Romanian, and they needed to learn English, and then they started a business. And so I made my argument as being a nomad and and a linguist. And I'm not going this way, I'm going south. And I also said, let's be responsible in regards to my college education. Could you imagine if I did 4 years and didn't do that as a career? This at least is an add-on to Richard. And they knew I was taking it seriously. And I kept following through. And I kept getting better and better and better and better. And so, like with your English, when you said at 19 you started becoming a linguist. And so it picks up. You know when it's time, and you know where it's going to take you. You're doing a podcast in English. You speak beautifully, and so that's an amazing thing. And so I guess I was going with the Wu way. There's certain times in life I'm allowing the wind, the current, or gravity to take me. I had to. I don't want to carry it. Use a dolly or use the wind. I don't want to row. And it's fun when you're on a bike going downhill. Much more fun than going uphill. And I said, if I keep getting this reinforcement, good feelings moving forward here, doing this there, just keep doing it. You can't lose. I mean, something's happening. And it's just, I couldn't compare notes to anybody. None of my friends or my family or my family's friends could compare notes with me. So it was just one of those adventures where you have blind faith. You're willing to let go and to see if you land on your feet. And maybe I was crazy enough or just in a certain state of mind at that age, at 27, that I was willing to go for it. And I was willing to live a beautiful, pure life. And I was willing to go all the way. And I also knew that I was going to disappoint a lot of people. And you and I
Yeah.
we had to get past some guilt, but pay it no mind. It just gets a little tighter, the space, but I can still make it through. We can still do it.
But that's the main thing what you just said. You said you let go, you were crazy enough to do it, and this is pretty much the main thing everybody, at least for me, I struggle with every single day to let go the aspirations and the theory of my parents that are setting me to go down this path. It's it's just hard to just say, "Okay, I'll let it all go, and now I'm doing this hustling into the other direction." So
Down.
how can
I
you
didn't say
make
cold
easy
turkey. I didn't say cold turkey.
Yeah, but how can you make this whole let it go phase easier for people? How
Very
can you get
simple.
crazy enough for that?
It's okay. And it's because most people have either school or work, which is, let's say, 40-hour week, a work week. Well, people that run businesses do 80-hour weeks, sometimes 100 hours. And so if you can still be responsible with school, your family, your finances, but just like you with this podcast, can find the time to do it. And if you can, triple it up and do it even more. That's a real player. You reduce the stress of cutting everything, quitting that job, trying to find. I didn't say quit jobs. I said, put your feet on two rocks. Don't get wet.
Mhm,
And so for me, I was able to work at my friend's center and still do other things. And it worked out that way because I like a plan. And if you have a 1 to 6 month plan in regards to savings, in regards to expectations, you got it. And then when you come to your parents, young man, and you say, listen, mom and dad, I still have this job. My grades are great. I'm still a good kid, right? Still handsome. But what I've been doing on the side, like with the podcast, they saw that. But then imagine if you started doing a business. I know it's not making me a lot, still making a couple grand a month or making 500 a month, or I'm not losing money, but I'm building experience. I just went on 3 appointments last week to a guy that's worth $50 million. I actually got the appointment. And so for me in my industry, which is kind of interesting, telemarketing was something that I knew that it was such a skill that if you learn to listen, to take copious notes, meeting minutes, you follow through on target dates and times and commitments. Oh, the structure it gives you. Like the movie The Karate Kid. I love those movies. They, instead of just being at the pizza parlor at the car dealership or just even washing in the cars, you could wash a car a certain way. Miyagi told him to wax on and wax off and paint the fence. Why? Because if you and I are doing a podcast, man, we are crushing it. If you're doing your schoolwork, you're crushing it. Washing the car like a champ, making dinner for the folks like a champ. You probably make your bed every day. You seem like a kid that does that. Very nice. Good for you. But I'm saying these are the small wins. And in football terms, these are first downs to get the touchdowns. I know what you're thinking. You want to strike it rich. No, dude. You and I are the ones that need to pan the gold. You'll get an occasional nugget, but you and I have to get that ounce by panning it. That's how you're going to do it. You keep your responsibility with family, but you break your back to get those ounces so then you can come back and show them your consistency. And maybe it is the time for us to reduce that, increase this, because as you see, I could make more money because I'm showing you what I'm able to earn per hour. Or I just landed a huge account. I can't work there anymore. This guy's paying me 10 times that amount of money. It's time for me to make the break. Or, hey, listen, before I do anything, look what I have in the bank account. I have more than enough money to live for 3 to 6 months. So when I do land, it's going to work out. And then they will see that you are more than prepared for this next stage of your life. Those are big boy decisions. That's where the maturity comes in, champ, because those are the decisions you're going to be making while your podcast grows and you expand your business empire and when you have your wife and kids and stuff. So these are the decisions that you make ethically that you know are the correct decisions. So you can live with yourself. You don't compromise those things. So those are my thoughts for you to make your Moritz bubble complete. Okay. So
mhm.
every angle is covered, some stronger than others, but you're good, man. You're balanced. You get it. The game's good. It's a long game, but you'll understand it. Man, I'm 53 years old. You got time. You'll make it. I promise you. And so, as I'm saying, replace that 10 to 15% demon or whatever's in that head, take it out, put something back into it. You still got to walk the mile, but do it in more comfortable shoes. Why do you want to make it tough on yourself, buddy? Be nice to yourself. You'll last longer.
You just said so many important things in there. Most importantly, of course, be nice to yourself. Balance what you try to do. Don't just let it go because you saw a 19-year-old on TikTok doing 20 million a month and now you're just buying their dropshipping course and uh, throwing everything else overboard. So don't do that. To be the balanced one. Try to do everything with you being present. So also mind wise. When you cook, you should cook with your head. When you watch something, you should concentrate to it. It's very, very hard for a generation that has an attention span that's shorter than the one of a goldfish to bring all of that into one life in a week. So you need, of course, time for those changes. And I think of all the talks that I just had with other people, the most important thing is to not stress yourself when you do something wrong. Don't hate yourself for eating one more time junk food when you tried to do a bit more healthier diet and everything, because hating yourself on it will just make it worse. My last question to you, nevertheless, is when you could talk to all the people on the world, the afraid ones, the ones that don't really know if that's what they're doing right now is the right thing, what would you tell them to make it
Close
better?
their eyes and ask them, what do they see and how do they see themselves? Growing up as a child, you might see yourself as a fireman or a gladiator or astronaut or something. Well, you should see yourself in those sort of images of what you can be, not what you are today. And, it's crazy when you have your darkest moments, you think you're never going to get out of it, or your heart is broken, or you're broke. But when you get older and you look back at it, of course you're not happy something happened to you, but you're twice as proud of how you handled it. And yeah, I curse and scream, and I love Doritos and pizza and chocolate, and so I'm not a saint, but I work out so I can eat the pizza. And I got a couple people to call in case my car breaks down, and I need some help. But you know what's kind of funny? There was a movie called Zorba the Greek with Anthony Quinn. And it's a really good black and white movie, and I'm going to ruin it for you and your audience. His ship sinks at the end, okay? And it's in front of everybody in this little Greek town. So what does he do? Puts his arms out and just starts dancing on the beach like a champ. Why do you think they tell you to dance in the rain? It's funny when people are the saddest, they laugh. When we're the happiest, they cry. So I don't understand how that happens. But I've been in certain situations or I look around, I look up, and I just start laughing because, if that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me today, then I've been blessed. But I'm going to say it again, my friend, do not be hard on yourself. And if you live your life with good intentions and good faith, these are good days. And if you're able to look at yourself in the mirror, that's the most important thing. You should be able to look in your own eyes. And if it starts off where it's with just making your bed in the morning, it's a good start. Okay. So I think that if there's certain checkpoints people can have just to see their progress, I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's a step in the right direction. But for a person that took major chances, I was willing to live with myself regardless of the outcome. Naturally, I got very lucky. That's why I'm all smiley and happy and telling fun stories. But it could have failed miserably. But I tell you what, there's something inside of you and something inside of all of us that will get you off of that, you know, situation where you got to get out of the desert, the high seas, the mountain, or just survive. You got broken ribs, man. One eye shot, but you're still making it. There's things inside people that want them to live. And drinking life is a nice thing. Life is beautiful. And when you strip everything down and you find the most simplest things that give you pleasure, then I think you won the game of life. And, when you go into your house and there's the fireplace going, you smell the burning wood, it's super cozy. It's not the greatest feeling in the world. Or when grandma was making dinner, you smell that hot apple pie for dessert. That's the greatest in the world. Hot chocolate on a cold night. I'm doing all my winter stuff because I miss Philadelphia. But those things are priceless to me. If I had to
Mm.
pay, yeah, I'll give you a grand. Let me do it again. I mean, but I realized there were certain small details in life that gave me the most immense pleasure, and I capture that and I keep that. And so I think with all your amazing audience and listeners, as I say, choose your own path, be responsible, and believe in your intuition. And if it's not your butterflies, then believe in numbers. Maybe if your lucky number keeps coming up, or you keep waking up and it's 4:44 in the morning, something's going on. I mean, there's certain hints that the gods will give you from time to time. You might see it. And so just pay a little bit more attention what's out there because it's not the Matrix. No one knows how to explain this world. And so, as I say, a lot of the decisions were made on things that were kind of presented in front of me. So I just took it.
Wow. Thank you so, so much for your insights. Where can
Sure.
people go if they want to get to know you a bit better or want to keep up with you as a person?
You need to buy a plane ticket and come visit me, especially when it's snowy in Germany. You can't take it anymore. But no, you can check me out on my website, Costa Rica's callcenter.com. And I can't thank you enough. Great conversation, good time, and hope I was able to deliver for the audience.
More than ever. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, buddy.